So I'm going to talk about sort of a weird topic. I don't know. It is weird. I don't think it's that weird. I think it's common, but it's not talked about very much. And it's always something that I have experienced, and I'm just surprised more people don't talk about it. I mean, you hear about it every once in a while, but I kind of titled it, and I was working on an article recently for my Substack newsletter called "Good Engineers Gone Bad." Good engineers gone bad. What is a good engineer that has gone bad? That's basically like, I'm pretty sure if you've been in tech for more than 10 minutes, you've probably run it. I mean, maybe you're lucky and haven't, but I would assume most people have run into a good engineer gone bad. I mean, I guess I have had one or two maybe jobs where I haven't, but that's just because the culture was amazing. But what is a good engineer gone bad? It's like the person that nobody wants to work with, right? That super smart engineer that's not approachable, that nobody likes, but nobody wants to talk about. Everybody kind of like skirts the way around them, except they're super smart. They're typically smart enough to have landed themselves in some position of power, if you want to call it that, right? Whether it's principal or, I mean, it could be a senior engineer, but it's usually somewhat a step above even a senior. And I thought about a couple of things that describe a good engineer gone bad. I'll list them here. Hard to work with. They bring down the atmosphere around them. They just bring it down, right? Emotionally and, physically, right? Just being in a room with them. They're usually aloof and distant, They don't say much all the time, or they might. Or they always have something to say, maybe. I don't know if that's a good or not. People leave their team. They have to be right all the time, and they don't really care about explaining why they're right. They have an inability to teach, which kind of ties into that. They just care about being smart, and they just want to look good on PRs and make everyone else look like an idiot. And they basically don't teach anyone, right? They just sit in their tower and basically block and guard everything. And that kind of leads into, like, a lot of times I've noticed they make the PR process miserable. Instead of it being like a collaborative, fun learning experience, it's basically miserable, right? It's a place for them to show how smart they are and how unsmart you are. And I just generally call them unkind. They're not a kind person to work with, and they gatekeep everything. It's so annoying. I have one thought in my mind. Maybe I'm just bitter. I mean, I'm still scarred from the one I ran across in my life. But yeah, so they're typically the smartest person in the room. I mean, that's how they got to where they are. They started out good, they got super smart, but somewhere along the line, I would say they just like lost their humanity, if for lack of a better term. They're just a black hole that sucks away everyone and everything good, and they destroy teams, destroy culture and companies just by being horrible, basically. And it's funny because I think about how expensive they are. I think about, in my experience in the past, like, I didn't stay at that company long, and I know a lot of other people didn't, and they just it was so obvious to me. And it's funny how they get themselves to a point of, I don't know, somewhat power. And I remember sitting there in a room once, and even like the manager over this good engineer gone bad just couldn't deal with them. They couldn't, they were basically afraid of them, for lack of a better term, right? They'd been at Tenature, they'd been there long enough, super smart. And I'm sure that manager knew exactly who they were and what they were doing and how they're basically destroying every meeting and destroying the culture, and they just couldn't do anything about it, or they could, but they didn't want to. I don't know. And how do you deal with them? I wrote about this in my article. That's a hard one. How do you deal with them? I think you have a couple options. I think you can just take the high road. It's always going to be hard if you have someone that is hard to work with, that is like this, super smart but hard to work with, a good engineer gone bad. How do you work with them? If you work directly with one, I mean, you can always think about changing teams. If you're in a big enough company, you can just move. You can get a new job. That's kind of drastic, but I mean, life is short, and even in this current environment, there's engineering jobs everywhere. I don't think there's any reason to be miserable anywhere with anyone, because honestly, these type of people, you're being held back. You're probably not learning. You're probably not getting asked questions. You're not being mentored. You're basically just being crapped on every PR, that's not good for you as a person. It's not good for your career. So, you need to probably move away from that person, whether it's in a different department or a different company. But if you don't want to, I think there's ways. You could just take the high road, right? Like, learn from them, right? Just take the high road, see how smart they are. Maybe refuse to be angry. Just ask a lot of questions of them. Try to, for better or worse, if they leave terrible comments on you prior, just try to be kind and say why? Can you teach me, show me? Maybe physically ask that. Can you teach me more? Can you show me what you're talking about or what I've done wrong? Can you help explain to me? I don't understand. So you could just be kind, because they're not. So, that's always an option. But I would say, learn from that mistake. Learn how to avoid those people. Try to ferret them out. I know it's hard when you're taking a job, but try to notice that, in your interviews, if you're interviewing with tech leads or anybody with principal engineers, just kind of, you can get a culture check on it, see what the banter is like. Just pay attention to that sort of thing, right? Because it can make your life miserable. Yeah, I'm sorry if you're there. It still gives me nightmares today.